Hello everyone, welcome to the 30-day coloring challenge. It's day 1 and I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm doing some very simple coloring. I want to show you need minimal supplies. So look at this gorgeous tiger lily stamp from Power Poppy. It's large. You can see the scale of it compared to my Memento ink here. I love a big flower. Now I stamped the centers and I'm just putting some quick color on them with some Copic markers. I'm going to take some glossy accents and some Flower Soft and dip just the stamen part into the Flower Soft, set it aside to dry, and I pulled up a lily on my phone and I'm using that as a guide. I just had one. I love these rubrum lilies. They smell so delicious. They're my all-time favorite flower. It's what I wanted in my wedding bouquet. Okay. Now I'm using only Sharpie markers for the first section of this video. This is just a pink Sharpie and I'll be using some other Sharpies as well. So now I've picked up a peach Sharpie marker and I'm just moving around the flower and I'm taking the Sharpie and putting it on top of the pink, and it actually kind of blends. And my goal in life is for everyone to feel successful with coloring. I just drew an arrow, because I forgot to do the white, to leave the white area on the edge of the petal. But anyways, my goal is for everyone to feel successful coloring, and you don't need a lot of supplies. Pick up some Sharpie markers at your drugstore. Chances are you probably have them in your drawer anyway. So I'm just referring back to that flower, and I'm going to take another Sharpie marker that I have, a red one. I always use like at least 3 colors, usually a medium, a light, and a dark. So I needed some darker color and I found this red Sharpie, and I'm just focusing on the center and then bringing the lines out. And I'm going to speed this up in a minute because I have 3 coloring things to share with you today. The next flower I'm going to do is with Distress ink, and then I'm going to use some Altenew markers. So you can have success using just Sharpie markers. Like anything, you need to do some layers of color, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm adding another layer of color of Sharpie, and when you build up the layers, there's just more interest in your coloring, and that just takes a little bit of practice. So if you're new to the challenge, don't compare yourself to anybody's work. Compare yourself to you, and I guarantee you'll see a change in your coloring by the end of this challenge. There's all different levels in the challenge, and a lot of people have been doing it many times, so of course their coloring is going to have a more mature look, and there's a lot of newbies this time, which is very, very exciting. And please just don't compare yourself to anyone. I know that's kind of nature and it's hard to do, but just give yourself a little pep talk. Now I'm just adding some lines with color. I just want to build up that red on top of the peach, just building more, adding some detail with lines and dots, and it's a great way to add a little bit of texture to your coloring, especially if you're using just like a Sharpie marker. So don't be bashful about doing that. You can always add more color on top, but practicing and trying different things is a way to experiment, and I guarantee if you keep just working it, you'll like what you're doing better. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, okay, now I've picked up my peach, and I am working with some different tips here, but that doesn't really matter so much. I guess the finer tip can give you a little softer line. Excuse me, but so right now As you saw earlier in the video, I cut the center, as you see right here, but I'm going to pop it a little bit, so I wanted to put some color behind that. And now I found this really nice Sharpie in my supply bin, and had a brush tip. So I used that brush tip to put on my darker color, and now I'm bringing my lighter color to kind of soften that. And it's really amazing, they do blend. Now I'm using a yellow. I just want a little bit more interest on those leaves. And I had a little too much yellow, so I'm adding some darker green on the end and then back with this light green. And again, just layers of color. Just experiment. There's no right or wrong. So I'm going to cut these out. I love to fussy cut. And I don't know if Power Poppy is going to have a die cut for this, but it's large, so I think it's easy to cut out. And it's so fun to make a shaped card. I love making shaped cards. So I'm going to just cut this out, and then I'll take a Memento marker. I want to cover up all those white lines. It gives you a much more finished look. So here's the Memento marker. If you use a Copic marker, it can bleed into what you've done. So I always use a Memento. This is one of my essential supplies. So I'm just going around there and making sure that every white edge is covered with this marker. And now I'm going to glue that down. But I'm cleaning up, since it's a Sharpie, I can't remove any of those markers that went into the white area. So I'm just taking a white gel pen to clean up those lines, because a little bit of marker got into those white areas. And if you know me, I always warm up the gel pen on my finger. It just seems to work, it gets it going. I know it's flowing, and then you want to go slow and let it flow. That's what I like to say. So I've added white dots to all the areas where there's black dots on this flower. And then I just glued the stamen piece into the center. And now I have another image here that I cut for the back of the card, and I just scored it. I'm using a bone folder, and that's where I'm going to glue the two cards together to attach them. I could have done that in a lighter ink, but I didn't. Now the leaves, I'm gluing one on the front and one on the back, so when it's popped open, there's a little bit more interest there. And I'm just squishing little glossy accents behind that leaf, checking my lines, making sure that they're all covered up, and then I'm finished. So that's the Sharpies there, and then we're going to move on to Distress ink. Okay, so you can color with Distress inks. You can watercolor with Distress inks, that's the obvious, but here I'm struggling with my case for my daubers, and I'm going to grab a few colors and just do some quick coloring with Distress ink. So if you don't have markers, or you're not in the mood to use markers, grab your Distress ink. Now a dauber works really good for this because you have a lot of control. I actually have it on my finger here, and it's actually much easier than I thought to leave that white edge on each petal. It just fits perfect because the stamp is nice and big. I'm telling you, you want this stamp. Okay, so I'm just adding that first layer of color on each flower, and then I'll add a darker color. So I'm focusing more on the edge and then bringing the color towards the center. Now I'm using, I think it's Fire Brick Red, but I'll link all the supplies in the description. So now I'm focusing on that edge and then bringing the color towards the center a little bit, but hovering more on the edge there. And I could make a slew of these cards this way. I also wanted to make a wreath with these flowers, but time just didn't permit. So now I'm moving on to the leaves. I just picked two colors, just literally throwing on color. And now I have a second color that I'm focusing on the edge and the top and the bottom of the leaves makes it easier to cut those out. I didn't want to get any on my red petals. Okay, so now I'm just focusing on the side here and the edges, and I want to draw the eye into the center of that leaf. And I'm just adding a little bit of accents on this center here that I've cut out, and that'll go there. Now I just, I cut my black flower, glued my leaves on, and just adding the white dots. I didn't show that other stuff because you already saw it. So, I mean, that looks pretty good for a very quick coloring, no markers. You could really make a ton of those. Now we're moving on to the third card, and this time I'm using alcohol markers. These are from Altenew, and they come in a set. And if you've never used Copic markers, this is a great way to start. I think Altenew, well, I know they're going to be introducing more sets. And these are more affordable, they blend beautifully, and you don't have to like figure out what colors to get. Plus, they work great with other markers as well. So I'm just, I started with my lightest color, and now I'm bringing some darker, more rich color in, and then I'll blend that out with the medium color. If you subscribe to my YouTube, I have lots of other coloring videos with markers and one with Altenew. So I know this is a little fast, but we had a lot to get through today. Now, while I finish this up, I'm just adding more color, blending it out, then bringing in a little bit more in. And you'll see a ton of this during the challenge, so I'm just going to chit-chat while I do this. Now I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, tomorrow it's going to be a big blog hop with a lot of my favorite companies, and I'm so excited. I think everyone will have a giveaway, their very own giveaway, and it's just going to be really exciting and wonderful. So look for that, and on my blog I have, if you have any questions, a link to, a thing you can read about the challenge, or you can watch a video about the challenge. But there's just a lot of information. It's very easy to share. I'll have all that on my blog, and it's going to be fun. So you'll see a lot more of me coloring with markers and colored pencils. I've actually stamped this. I love the size of this. I stamped it with some pink ink on white cardstock, and then I'll be coloring that one of the days this week because I want to show another way to use a stamp. And I love big stamps. You can just do so much with them. Now I'm just coloring that even though I'm popping it in case you see a little bit on the sides. And just bringing in a little bit more color there with the lightest Altenew marker. And then I'm going to grab a Copic marker to finish up my coloring. But before I do that, I need to color these little stamens. And I'm just using 3 of the colors. And I want the darkest color concentrated in the center, and then I'm blending that color out. Now I've gone ahead and added white dots. You saw me do that twice. Now here's an E50, and I'm just softening that pink line to the white line. I'm being careful just to go on top of that last pink line, just to soften it. See how it gives it a little bit of a different color? It just makes it a little more interesting. And it's also proof that these markers work great with Copic markers. So I'm going to cut that out. Now I decided I wanted to add some of that E50 to the leaves just to give it a slightly different hue. And then I'll cut those out. Here's all 3, Sharpie, Distress Ink, and markers. And this one's the Altenew markers. So see at my blog, TheDailyMarker.com, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.